Part 2. A few months ago I did a video on the super simple oscillator, which is basically a super simple circuit that buzzes. It's probably the main project that I get questions about. So this is basically a follow-up based on some of these questions. The first thing we're going to look at is the powering situation. The problem was that the last one needed two 9-volt batteries to run. It needed a whopping 18 volts to be oscillating, which is kind of ridiculous. The reason for this can be found on Kerry D. Wong's website, which goes into depth about the reverse avalanche technique that is used in this circuit. The reason it required 18 volts is because the transistor used in here, which is a 2N3904, required at least 12 volts to start buzzing and oscillating, which isn't that useful if you want to power it with just one 9-volt battery or a synthesizer power supply which is only 12 volts, because that's only when it starts oscillating at its lowest notes. So on Kerry D. Wong's website there's a graph of different transistors and the voltages that they start making buzzes at. And yeah, the 2N3904 is at the top. The reason I went for the 2N3904 resistor is because it's really easy to find. So here's a super simple oscillator I quickly put together using the schematics from the old video. The only difference is it's got a removable bit for the capacitor and the transistor. So you can try different capacitors and transistors out in your circuit. And we'll get onto that in a sec. So this is a different transistor. This is the transistor right at the bottom of Kerry D. Wong's table. It's called the SS9018 and it only requires 8 volts to start oscillating, which means you can make it go buzzy with just one 9-volt battery. So it's just right, because when you turn it right down to the bottom it doesn't oscillate, which means you turn it off. These are a little harder to come by, so yeah, I just ordered these off eBay. This brings us on to another question I get quite a lot from this, and that's the capacitor. What does the capacitor do? Well, a capacitor charges and discharges as it oscillates. This is a 1 UF capacitor, which makes it go quite high. But what happens if we swap the 1 UF capacitor with a 100 UF capacitor? So we're going to plop that in on this pins. The 1 UF capacitor is so big that it turns it into a sort of LFO that's making it really, really slow. So it's more like so with a 100 UF, it's more like a rhythmic. It's more like a rhythmic punch, like a kick drum. You can try it with any capacitor. Ah, God, that's high. So yeah, try different capacitors and work out which ones work for you. In the 100 oscillator Megadrone, which is basically 100 of these circuits, each row has a different capacitor, going from very, very low, which I think is even 470 UF, which is a very big capacitor, right up to I think about 220 NF, which is a very high-pitched one. You can have different types in the same machine, it doesn't matter. Another question that's often asked is how do I change the pitch without changing the knob? Using things like control voltages from sequencers or other oscillators that are making it go woo woo woo. And yes, to add control voltage to this easily is very possible. The only downside is it isn't 100% accurate, because to make a circuit with 100% accuracy of, you know, the notes, you just require a heck of a lot more electronics, and you may as well be looking somewhere else, because this is just super simple. How do we do this? Well, I'm going to use a technique that I've used quite a lot in a few videos, which is called a Vactrol. You simply get one of these, which is a light dependent resistor, and you just pop it across these two legs of the potentiometer. So that means you can control this knob with light. But that's only half of the Vactrol. How do we control this knob with voltage? Well, basically we need to turn the voltage into light, and then we put the light into the light dependent resistor. It's that easy. And how we do that is we get an LED and we literally just tape it onto the light dependent resistor. And that's pretty damn easy. So I'm just going to solder this straight on to the legs of the potentiometer. One. Now I'm just going to solder this jack, which also has a 1K resistor on it that stops the LED from burning out. So the tip of the jack to the positive end of the LED. Solder the other one. So now this has a jack hanging off it, and we can plug anything into that to modulate this. So now I've got this, which is a Befako Rampage, which is an envelope generator, and I'm going to plug this straight in to the CV of this circuit, and then see. So that's control voltage from here, controlling this. You can also use voltage sources like sequencers, like the Super Simple sequencer, or even keyboards like this pressure points that I'm about to plug in and try. And there we go, it's more than possible to make it sort of musical. It's never going to be perfect because it's a super simple project. The signal that's coming from this oscillator isn't actually loud enough to modulate itself, which is a bit of a shame. And also because the signal's quite low, the volume of it is quite low as well. So regardless of all that, it's still very easy, and I'm going to build a bank of oscillators into this, with maybe a filter as well. So let's go! This is when we start to deviate from the original path because we're adding CV. So now we've wired all of the blacks, the reds and the blues together. We're going to deviate slightly from the original design and add 2 extra wires to each of these for the control voltage. So there we go, 5 wires off it. What you need to do now is you need to connect all of the black wires together, which is the grounds, and they'll connect together. You need to connect all of the red wires, which are the 9 volts, together, so all the power's connected, and all the blue wires, which is the audio out, you need to connect all of them together. It's as simple as that, and you could connect, in theory, an unlimited amount of oscillators together in this way. Hence how I did it with 100 oscillators back there. 100 oscillators, literally just wired together, like this. It's as easy as that. So we're at the point now where we can test it and see if the oscillators oscillate. Yes, so now it's time to add the CV. So it's pretty much done. All that's left is to add a CV Vactrol to the filter. It's the same as in the other video, the super simple filter. You just make the Vactrol and you pop it across the pot, the same as these ones. But regardless, let's see if it works. This is the super simple keyboard oscillator I made a few months ago as well. And I'm going to plug this in to control this. So like, take one wire and pop it in number 1. So there we go, that's how you control the super simple oscillators with CV. Okay, so here we go, it's finished. Modelled by Greg from White Noises.
Hello.
Which is a great channel that you should check out. But what are we going to do right now? Are you going to play this with this?
Yeah, I'm going to plug this into here, to my little setup that I've got, and see what we can do with it.
Sweet! Right, let's go.